Welcome, everybody, to the Live Front and Center podcast here for the Women's International Music Network. I'm your host, Myki Angeline, where we hold up and celebrate women killing it in the industry. And this one you will want to listen to. And please don't get fooled by her youthful exuberance look. She has been doing the damn thing for quite some time. I want to welcome entrepreneur, senior music executive, singer-songwriter, all the things, Janishia Jones. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Myki, for having me. It's an honor.
Oh my gosh, the honor is all ours, all mine. Because when I received the email from your publicist going, could we, do an interview? And I'm looking at your list of accolades and I'm like, wow, how can we
Thank
not
you.
talk to this woman? So if you're wondering what I'm talking about, let me go. I have to go down this list. I have to actually look because the list is so long. So you're looking at the CEO and founder of Fresh and Sassy Productions, Pub Royalty Queen podcast host, a seat at the table market research agency, Juke Joint Foundation, and ENCORE Music Tech Solution. All of these businesses are yours.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
Wow. So
Thank
as we
you.
get into this, you did start out in music as a
hmm
singer-songwriter. And
hmm
because of what you experienced, both as a woman and a woman of color, you
hmm
saw a need
Yes.
for many, many things, which is lists off what we discussed. So let's kick it off by talking about what inspired you in your initiatives to empower women of color, especially in the music industry.
Sure. Well, first of all, like you mentioned, I've been in the music industry now for 12 years. And like many women of color, we are entering into the music industry from the ground level. Most of us enter from internship. We don't necessarily have the connections or the relationships to introduce us into the game. And so a lot of us go to school first to learn about the craft. We enter into the internship on the internship level. And so a lot of what I've experienced in my career has been uh, kind of feeling undervalued by way of being overworked and underpaid. Um, and at this point of my career, must have been 10 years in at this point, I was starting to feel like, well, am I the only one that's feeling this way? Am I bugging? So I started a podcast, Pub Royalty Queen podcast, as a way to first expand my network of other like-minded individuals in the music industry, but also to see like, is anyone out there that's experiencing the same things that I'm going through? And it turns out it doesn't matter what level of career you're in the music industry, as a woman, but especially as a woman of color, there are so many challenges that we're all experiencing. And so, Pub Royalty Queen podcast was built as a safe space for women of color in the music industry to speak about their challenges and their triumphs navigating a white male dominated business. Some of the things that have been, or stories that have been shared with me are, being discredited for work or constantly being gaslit because you're going above and beyond, but you're not sure whether or not uh, you're being considered for promotional opportunities over your white counterparts. Um, a lot of the content that's being promoted out there are denigrating women in the media, and so you're having to combat a lot of that in the boardroom. So there's a subconscious bias that plays out there. And then also when you're the only person of color in the room, because of the lack of diversity in those spaces, there's a tokenism that happens there where you're having to overperform just to be recognized. So there's a lot of things that women of color on my show speak about in regards to their specific challenges that I think help the larger industry understand. They're yes, it's difficult being in a very hyper competitive industry, but then there's also compounded challenges that people at the intersection of gender and race also experience.
Yes, everything you said, and being that I present as a woman of color, I am half Filipino, but and then also queer, and then not even femme presenting. You're right. I think
Yes.
everything from social media slamming to being passed over for opportunities at work Those were things
Exactly.
I had fought with even before I got into the music industry. And it's
Yes.
2023 and we're still dealing with it. You've noticed that, right? I
Oh,
know
for
you've
sure.
noticed that.
For sure. And in order to legitimize those experiences, because no one really cares about how you feel. No one cares about your story. Anecdotes only go so far. I've led a 10-year career as a data analyst. So I use my skills and my talents to
Ooh.
analyze, actually conduct the first research study on intersectionality in the music business. And even the process by which that happened is a story in and of itself. Right now the music industry is at this place where it's trying to create more safe spaces for diverse perspectives. They're trying to be more open, have more open discussions about challenges that marginalized groups face. But often these initiatives and programming falls flat because they don't have data. They're really like throwing money at problems to see what sticks, and frankly, they lose money because they don't have that due diligence. So the research study, I reached out to a reputable agency, media research, and they do a lot of research studies about entertainment and trends. And I looked to them for some insight on the best way to make sure that I'm doing this study in the most professional way. Because if I'm going to represent this marginalized group, I want to make sure that it's done professionally and that it's received the right way. So they said to me that, while they would love to participate in this, they understand the value that this kind of study has on the industry. Unfortunately, they don't have the demographic. They don't have this information to even, assist with me on. So they said, listen, we can help you phrase the question so that it doesn't skew on the results one way or the other, but you have to do the field work. That was my lane. I have the
So
network,
much work. Yes, I was going to say
you know.
because you're right. The lack of the information makes it hard, but you've already done the groundwork.
Exactly. And so having the network, having the connections with people of color in the music industry, the way that women of color supported and lifted the study last year, I thought was amazing. But just really speaks to the camaraderie within our community, and how important it was for them to use their voices in this way. So long story short, the research study was the first research study on intersectionality in the music business. I presented it last year at the Music Biz Association conference in Nashville. And it's allowed women of color to use the data to advocate for themselves for better promotional opportunities. And it's helped the industry understand this demographic and target specific challenges, address specific things that they can create better opportunities for this group of people.
So let's dive into one of your plethora of businesses you've got going. Well, for the
Yes.
data analysis, does that encompass with all, or do you have one in particular that really focuses on that?
So, Seat at the Table, a market research agency. The study itself was called A Seat at the Table, a perspective on women of color in the music business. And so
Oh,
that one, that the agency is the one that represents the study.
and give us a little bit more on that, though. A seat at the table. Let's go ahead and talk about
Yes.
that for now. And I'm going to
Well,
share the screen while you discuss that.
some of the statistics that are presented from the study that stand out, or key takeaways from that, are the majority of women of color take out student loan debt in order to finance their education. 90% of women of color at least earn an associate's degree or higher degree of education, even though they do not feel like it's substantial in order for them to maintain a career in the music business. So this speaks more to their value of education, having a value for knowledge. But the disadvantage is that if they're taking out student loan debt and they're entering in the industry via unpaid internships, and then they're in these major metropolitan areas that are very expensive to live in, it creates a disadvantage. It creates an imbalance, so to speak. And it's a privilege. I think that's the thing that we need to recognize. It is a privilege to be in this business. You do need the resources, and you do need the connections to thrive here. The music industry is specifically a relationship driven business. So it doesn't matter what you know, it's who you know.
Yes.
And that makes it a lot more difficult for people who do not have those connections, or the resources to sustain in this business. So
So
those are
with
just some of the key takeaways.
this screen that I have up, you do a survey.
Yes, it's a survey. It's open to the public.
Okay.
Um, we make sure that we've siphoned off certain demographics so that we can contain information for the people that we're targeting here. But the new survey, outside of advocacy and family dynamics and career advancement opportunities, barriers to entry, we've also extended it to include mentorship. Like, what does it look like to have a mentor in this space? Do you have one? Other studies have concluded that in the music business, mentorship actually improves your income by over $40,000 over the span of your career.
Okay,
So,
that I did not know.
yes, it actually affects your bottom line at the end of the day. Yeah, and so if you're someone who is a woman of color, and you don't see a lot of women of color in senior leadership roles in this business, what tends to happen is people promote others that remind them of themselves,
That's very
right?
true. I've seen that one too many surveys. Yes.
So if you don't see yourself in a leadership role, the likelihood of you actually being able to occupy that space and become a decision maker is very slim. And what I realized that's happening is that there's this glass ceiling that even if you're someone who works more than 40 hours a week, even if you're someone who's putting in the groundwork and really making things happen, oftentimes you're being discredited because they don't see you as a leader. They don't see you as a manager in this industry. So what we're hoping to do with the study is to just highlight some of those, like I said, glass ceilings, those barriers that prevent people from actually living fulfilling careers in the music industry.
And I put that link in the chat room for those, whether they watch this now or later or catch it when we post it on the website to encourage everybody. In fact, I will do this when we're done with this podcast
Perfect. Yes,
because
thank you.
the information is, I mean, it comes around to what you were describing, unconscious bias in the workplace.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think all of the programming is well intended, especially in the wake of the George Floyd murder
Yeah.
2020 and the Black
Yeah.
Lives Matter movement. There's a real conscious effort of wanting to create meaningful change, but you're not able to move the needle forward unless you have the data. And so hopefully this will help to motivate them to create better, more equitable opportunities for
And
disenfranchised groups.
and I appreciate that you realize that you found a solution and the solution is data.
Yes. Well, I'm a data person.
You
I've
are.
led a I led a career in royalties and copyright administration and publishing. So, if anyone knows about publishing, you know that one of the biggest challenges there is the integrity of data and how it's being transmitted from one source to the other, how it flows through from company to company. So if you are someone like me who handles large sets of data on a daily basis, survey analysis is not super challenging, as long as you have the network.
There it is. Now let's touch on the next one, which is the Pub Royalty Queen podcast. So what inspired you to start this and how has it been since its inception? Like I'm sure you must have talked with amazing people in the industry.
Yeah, so Pub Royalty Queen podcast, again, it allowed me to expand my network because I was looking for more like-minded individuals. I feel like when you're on the operational and tech music industry, you feel like you're on an island by yourself because there's a lot of creatives. There are a lot of managers, there's a lot of marketing people, there's a lot of A&Rs. But when you're on the business side of things, you get kind of like you're in the shadows essentially. You become like a second rate employee in a lot of ways. You're not one of the cool kids. So for me, being able to start the podcast was a way for me to connect with my community and to offer them a safe space to not only build a foundation for what becomes a friendship ultimately, because now we have this shared, we have these shared traumas, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
That's great wording.
we have these shared experiences, but it's also a way to give them their flowers, because what this industry tends to do, it's always like, okay, you're done with one project and it's on to the next one. There's no room to sit and just, take in what you've been able to accomplish. And then when you're in a hyper competitive industry, you're always thinking the next person is in for your role. So you don't even have time, if you wanted to,
Yes. Yes.
to
Oh my
acknowledge
gosh.
that what you've done. And a lot of what we're doing, even though we're not rocket scientists necessarily, I think that music is an industry where you have the opportunity to change the world. It extends beyond language barriers, cultural barriers. Like, you can really change the world through music. So if you're able to really like drive a project, get things moving and off the ground for an artist to maintain a living in this business, I think that's something to celebrate. And as a woman of color, especially if you're the only one in the room, it
Mm.
takes someone who sees what you're doing to say, "Girl, you're doing an amazing job. Here's your flowers," and they really do appreciate that.
I'm loving all of this. I'm going to be diving into your podcast too. All right then.
Yes.
So we've talked podcast. Now let's go on to ENCORE Music Tech Solutions. That's a
Yes,
newer venture of yours,
correct.
relatively new, right? You just recently
Yes.
launched it?
So I launched Encore Music Tech Solutions in November last year. I'd led, like I mentioned a few times, a career in data analytics and music publishing, and I've become a bit of a subject matter expert in music publishing, which has allowed me to build systems and software for major music corporations such as Empire. Excuse me. Empire is one of the leading hip hop labels out there right now, and it's led by CEO, also an entrepreneur, Ghazi Shami. We're both from marginalized groups. We're both, setting to challenge the status quo by hiring, diverse groups of people. That company is definitely, on the precipice of changing the world themselves, and opening newer markets. Um, anyway, long story short, with Empire, had been working as an employee there for 2.5 years, building products like a royalties processing system that increased their revenue by over 700% in the past year.
Whoo.
And I was able to leverage my skills and my experience to change that relationship dynamic from employee employer to now doing business together. So Encore Music Tech Solutions, I am a consultant. It's a consultancy agency that helps major music companies build music software.
Incredible. I'm trying not to drop my jaw on camera here because I'm thoroughly just impressed. Can I just say
Thank
that
you.
out loud? Thoroughly impressed. My goodness. You're
Thank
seeing a
you.
need, you're seeing a void, and you're filling the void.
Yes.
You're making no excuses, you're not asking permission, you know what is needed and you've just dived. What has given you, can I ask, like, what has given you that kind of strength? What drives you? Cuz you
What
sound
drives
so
me?
confident and you sound,
Well, I mean, I was raised by parents who taught me to believe in myself, like fundamentally, to really just, if there's something that I want, have the confidence to know that I can achieve what I want. And it takes hard work. Nothing was ever given to me, but I take it all in stride, and I think of every day as an opportunity. So with everything that I've done, or I can also attribute it to my upbringing in talent competitions growing up.
there it is.
There is this level of esteem that is built within you, especially this specific organization was geared towards empowering young women of color. So I guess it just comes full circle. But that experience helped me to build the confidence within myself to know what it is that who I am, to present who I am and to stand in my power and own it. And it hasn't been easy, you know, it's not easy to, uh, sometimes be the only person of color in the room, to look young, like we mentioned earlier, to have a young face, or there's a lot of underestimation that happens. But when you have the confidence in the work that you're producing, you let the work speak for itself.
There it is.
And I've just been blessed to have the support that I needed to push through.
It sounds like you started with really strong roots, your own
Yes,
family, and
yes,
then that was guiding you and supporting you through the trials and tribulations, from the talent contest to being in business for other people, to then in turn being in business for yourself. And it sounds like with these ventures that you have, you're giving to whoever signs in or works with you, you're showing them what it feels like to be supported, to be believed in, to
yes,
show that they're
yes,
not the only ones. There's many of us
exactly,
here, right? Because that's usually the
exactly.
part where conquer and divide can happen, when you don't know that there's way more of us than we realize.
The interesting thing is that it wasn't until recently that I thought about myself as anything special. I always thought that
Mm.
I just had the, like you said, the background and the support that I needed to nurture my dreams and nurture who I would become. And I felt like if everyone had that, they could become who they wanted to be. You know, they could see their greatest potential. But it took someone very near and dear to me in the music industry to say, no, this is what you're doing is special. What you're doing, everyone can't do. And I just kind of leaned into that. I just leaned into my own talent, unique talents and skills, and said, you know what, I'm worthy of being able to present this on a level where maybe others might think, well, I wouldn't do that, or I'm not ready for that. So
And see, that's where it ties in having a mentor,
for sure, for
because
sure,
when you can rely on someone you trust with experience beyond yours to share with you, to give you feedback, I'm sure also to like keep you in check, but to give you the feedback when you
exactly.
doubt yourself. The imposter syndrome that that's that word that gets overused, but it's like within pretty much all of us at some point in our lives. I've gone
Yeah,
through it. I still go through it. Right. So you
even
can look
though,
back
like,
at all your accomplishments and who you've inspired and motivated, and that's right there is telling you.
and I want to just encourage other people to explore what happens if you just live fearlessly, because a lot of times we get in our own way, and we it's our own demons that are telling us that we can't do something, or we need to wait until a certain time. I feel like maybe I benefit from being in Aries, where you just kind of jump into things and you see how it goes.
Are you saying you're
So
not an Aries?
no, I'm definitely in Aries. I'm
Oh, okay,
that
okay,
person
okay.
that's super courageous, and just like sometimes, uh, I think what happens is people overplan, or they're waiting for the right timing, and it's like sometimes you just need to go for it and learn the lessons as you go along, and that's what helps you grow and learn. So I think I take that part as part of the journey, and I'm not afraid of it.
I
Um,
absolutely agree. I think whenever we halt and we're telling ourselves we have to wait for the right time, that's code for I'm too scared to try.
exactly,
And
exactly.
it's about understanding to it's a phrase I've used before when I've in speaking, and that is embracing the suck,
Right.
because failure is our greatest teacher and we learn how to go opposite that,
It's
you
called
know?
failing forward. Like, there's
Oh,
no such thing
yes.
as
Failing
perfection.
forward. I love that. I forgot all
There's
about
no
that
such
one.
thing as perfection. Everyone starts from some place. And as long
Mhm.
as you are, taking time to really evaluate where you are, where you're headed, and where you could improve, I think sky is the limit.
So then now on a personal question, because you do so much, it sounds like you're constantly go, 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 strategizing, planning, producing. What do you do outside of all of this to rest and recharge? Give me like a favorite thing you do, or
Sure.
an essential thing you can't be without.
Sure, I'm an advocate of staying home and doing nothing.
Okay.
Sometimes you just need to unwind and meditate. my form of therapy is I own a grand piano. Like I mentioned, I am a classically trained musician, so I have a piano in my house. I throw the music on and I play along with it. I am a singer, so I do enjoy just singing at the top of my lungs. Sometimes I'm sure my neighbors probably get annoyed with that, but
Well, at least
but
you sound amazing.
thank you, thank you. No, it's just because like you said, especially when you run many different businesses, uh, there's always something to do. There's always something to do, but you have to take care of yourself.
You
You're
do.
no good to other people if you're, flat on your face and
Yeah,
you
if your
have
glass
no
is
steam
empty,
or
you
energy.
can't serve others.
Exactly. And so it sounds selfish, and I might be in a privileged place right now to say that because I don't have children. I am not married. I don't have a family. So I can devote my energy and my time to myself. But I do feel like it's important for all of us to create that safe space for ourselves to zen out.
It's true. And there's ways that others who have different situations, being married and or with children, there are ways to find out. You're right. It does help for you that you don't have those distractions, but it doesn't mean it can't happen. So now as we wrap this up, let's finish up talking about ta-da, Juke Joint
Yeah.
Foundation.
So Juke Joint Foundation, it actually spawned from a beautiful moment after giving my presentation analysis on intersectionality. There was this roundtable event of women of color who joined together in Nashville, which is a very white city. So you can imagine
Share with me, girl,
how
because I've never been. How white?
but no, it's a beautiful city and it's a lot of fun. All I meant to say is that to be able to curate this group of women of color in a very segmented industry, it was just a wonderful opportunity for us all to commiserate with each other and share our experiences. So, Juke Joint Foundation is a nonprofit organization aimed at providing resources for women of color in the music industry via scholarships, grants, and access to music biz related events. This is an opportunity for our community to uplift each other, to network across, to engage in programming that empowers them either financially or with education. And it gives the industry also an opportunity to invest in programs that can actually help move the needle forward in a meaningful way.
And I why did I not assume we would see that scene? Because this movie is
Right.
everything.
And that
I
scene in particular for
oh,
me, yeah, yeah.
and I cry in all the same places, and I've seen this movie a million times. One of
Well,
the
see,
best
I
movies
want to tell
ever done.
the backstory of that particular clip. So it's from The Color Purple,
Yep.
and the song that's being sung is oh my goodness, I want to see Mama's Blues or something like that, but basically she tells Whoopi Goldberg, who is the protagonist of the story, hey, listen, we are cut from the same cloth. We're both women of color here. I might be someone who is a little bit more uh, stable in terms of financially. I feel a little bit more agency over my situation than you do, but literally we're undergoing the same challenges in this oppressive society. I see you and you are me in a way. So she's saying basically remember your name.
Is
This
it
is
Miss Seeley's Blues?
yes, you got it, you got it. I'm so
I had to
sorry.
look
And
it
I
up.
can't believe that I didn't get the name right of that song. But
You were just you were caught up, but yeah, I mean it's so interesting because this movie was what, 1980, 1981.
yes,
You can watch it at any time, and it's a timeless movie
it's a
of a
classic.
time in
Yeah,
history that may or may not have existed. It's not that this is a documentary, but it doesn't mean that these things did not exist and did not happen. And
right.
yes, you better believe I will go on record. I am still salty that it lost to the movie Out of Africa with white actors. And I'm saying that, I say that out loud every time. I'm so not right.
Different
Oh,
times.
I know, I
I
know.
I
We've
feel
come a
like if
long
it
way. We've come a long
for
way
for
since this
sure,
movie.
for sure. But it is
I
a
love
classic, and I think
it.
that specific moment speaks so much to the kind of environment we're trying to cultivate there. Is like we're all going through the same situation. You might look at me as someone who, there's no way I could be in that situation. That's so far gone from who I am or what I can do. But I am you and you are me. That's what I want for our members to feel when they join.
I'm sure they do because I get that feeling from you, and we just met.
Hey, I love that for us. Yes.
Honestly, I really do. I'm looking forward to listening to your podcast and doing your what's the word I was looking
My
for?
research study.
The research study, which the link is in the chat, and I'll make sure to share that when
Yes.
we share this to the website. So, lastly, as we wrap this up, what can we expect from you now that we're in 2023?
Sure. So, well, first of all, I am giving a presentation on the research study, the second annual research at South by Southwest this year in March.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And Pub Royalty Queen podcast, we've expanded to include a new series called Across the Table, where we add men to the conversation to speak on advocating and what it looks like to advocate for each other in this business. Um, also, plan to publish a tell all anonymous stories written by women of color in the music industry, a book called Cut the Music by the end of the year, distributed through Ebony Podcast Network. I know we're busy over here. We're busy.
It's amazing. I love it. It's
And
inspiring
then
me to get busy.
and then finally, Juke Joint Foundation is launching our inaugural luncheon on March 4th at Barley's in Los Angeles. So
Beautiful.
we're working on our membership and we're hoping to um, have an event where we can celebrate each other.
Congratulations to all of that. It's
Thank you.
pubroyaltyqueen.com. Thank you so much for being here and sharing this space and doing what you do for women of color in the music industry. Honestly, I
Thank
applaud
you.
you. So
I appreciate it.
necessary.
Thank you
Uh,
for the opportunity to share my story, and I hope to empower other women of color to stand in your power and to use your voice.
oh, I know you do. And I know you will continue. This has been live front and center from the Women's International Music Network, and reminding you that we do have our 11th annual She Rocks Awards 3 months away. During the NAM show, it'll be April 13th. The website's right there at thewomen.com. That's THEWIMN.com. Tickets are on sale now. We already did our first, we put out the first 3 honorees. There will be more to come. Sign up for our newsletter to stay in the know. And like I always tell you, every day that you wake up, you determine how your day will go. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.